Is Tenet a better movie with subtitles? Let's get right into it. The first time I saw Tenet in theaters was right around when it came out, and I complained a whole bunch about how I could barely understand some of the dialogue because the noise in the background is so loud to the point where you can't hear what our main characters were saying. So then I decided to go see the movie a second time in IMAX because I felt like I'd be able to hear it better. The only thing was, I still could not understand a single thing some of our characters were saying in these integral, loud scenes. It doesn't help this movie is extremely convoluted, so I decided to give up on watching this movie again in theaters to try to understand it, and instead, I opted to buy the movie on 4K and thought maybe if I watch this movie at home with great sound, on great picture, with subtitles, that maybe I would understand the movie more. So is Tenet a better movie with subtitles? I think it is, because I was able to grasp this film's main story better this time around than I was the first two times I watched the film. Watching it at home with subtitles enhanced my viewing experience because with subtitles, I was able to understand what the characters were not only saying, but what the story was truly about, at least in some of the scenes. My first time watching Tenet in theaters, I was so confused to the point where I had no idea what was even going on in the film. I wasn't sure what John David Washington's character was doing, who Robert Pattinson's character was, what Kenneth Branagh's character was doing in the movie, what they were all fighting for and fighting against. It was all very confusing. Then I read more about the movie, I did some more research, and I watched it a second time in IMAX. I understood the film more the second time around, but I still couldn't quite grasp what the main idea of Tenet was, or at least some of the main ideas in the smaller sequences in the film. And watching Tenet at home last night with subtitles, now I have a better understanding of some of Tenet's main ideas. The first two times around, I had no idea what exactly was happening in some of the film's best sequences, but now I feel like I do for the most part, but from time to time I am shaky. At this point, I am certainly someone who has seen Tenet in 3 different atmospheres. The first time was at a regular theater, the second time was in an IMAX theater, and the third time was at home with subtitles. So in this video, I am going to do my best and attempt to explain Tenet's plot as well as some of its scenes and see if watching with subtitles truly gave me a better viewing experience. Watching with subtitles, I can kind of piece together the beginning of the film now. I know that John David Washington's character, known as the protagonist, works for the CIA, and they're doing this extraction mission where they come across one of 9 parts of this nuclear bomb known as the algorithm, which can blow up us as well as our past. Yeah, it's a pretty deadly nuclear weapon. I'm still not totally sure what their original mission was supposed to be and what Neil was doing there and what he did, but I do have the basic understanding that John David Washington's protagonist was there for one reason, then he gets sucked into another mission, and now he's a part of Tenet. He's recruited by them. And we have a scene where the scientist explains to the protagonist what introverted weapons are, which leads him to Mumbai. He is tracking down an arms dealer, Sanjay Singh, but he needs a partner. This is where Robert Pattinson's Neil comes into the movie. The only thing is, his wife is the one they are looking for, but she's not an arms dealer. She actually happens to work for Tenet too. And after talking to Singh's wife Priya, the protagonist has to trace down Andre Sater, the real arms dealer they've been looking for. He signed a contract with people in the future who have been giving him gold and introverted items in exchange for blowing up the world with this algorithm. Pretty much what I know about Sater is that when he was a kid, he was recruited by the future in Stalsk 12, where he lived. It's this abandoned Russian city. And since that moment, he has become a maniac who believes that it is necessary to blow up the present and the past in order to make the future better. This man is insane, and he treats his wife poorly, played by Elizabeth Debicki. The main thing between them is that he has a hold over her because she approved this painting that ended up being a fake, and of course, Sater bought the painting that was worth $9 million, and now it's worth absolutely nothing. So the way he looks at it is, hey, let me take complete custody of our kid. You never see him again, and I'll let you go. but she of course can't do this. This is where the protagonist and Neil come in for the save. They want to steal the painting to relieve her of this hold, so they crash a plane into an airport to start a fire, which then allows them to carry out this mission. But when doing so, they come across a turnstile, which is how Sator and the future have been contacting each other, and John David Washington fights himself in a scene. This is where the movie starts getting a little bit more confusing. Whenever these turnstiles are being used, I have trouble following the movie. Also, when watching this movie last night, at this point, I felt like I was running a marathon because of how tiring it was to keep up with the subtitles while also trying to understand what exactly these characters are saying. When rewatching last night, I realized during the scenes between Sator and the protagonist that there is some slight humor that Christopher Nolan wrote into the screenplay in a lot of these scenes, but you wouldn't notice it unless you're really paying attention. It reminds me a whole lot of another Christopher Nolan movie right behind me. But honestly, after the middle of the movie where Sator and the protagonist have a bunch of back and forth scenes, the movie becomes so convoluted that I had a ton of trouble keeping up with it last night, even though this is the third time I've seen the movie, and I watched it with subtitles this time around. That's how difficult it is to follow all of Tenet's story. There's this highway sequence where the protagonist mistakenly gives Sator the last part of the algorithm. I still have trouble connecting the dots over the course of this scene. It lasts like 20 minutes. It goes from one car chase, then it goes to an interrogation between Sator, Kat, who he is about to shoot, and we have John David Washington on the opposite side of the glass, and then it leads into John David Washington being introverted and driving a car introverted, and then he is put on fire only to be frozen. I'm telling you, if Nolan did not integrate introverted people in the same scenes with people who are moving at normal speed, I would have a much easier time following along with Tenet's plot. But of course, Nolan integrates those introverted people in the same scenes as the people moving in normal time for probably 4 or 5 scenes in the film. And when that happens, I honestly have no idea what's going on, because sometimes they fight each other. There's this huge battle at the end where half of the people are moving introverted and the rest of the people are moving at normal speed. I do understand a good amount of the last 30 to 40 minutes of Tenet when Kat is shot, but the bullet is introverted, so she's going to have to go back in time, move in reverse speed to allow that wound to heal. And then in order to return to normal time, they have to go back to the airport at Oslo, which is where the other turnstile is, and that's why the protagonist fights himself in this scene. Directly after this, then, the whole group agrees that they have to go back another 10 days to when Kat was on vacation with Sator in Vietnam. They had this argument, and they believe that Sator is going to kill himself, which then detonates this nuclear bomb. So Tenet, led by Aaron Taylor Johnson, along with the protagonist and Neil, head to Stalsk 12, where they believe this nuclear weapon, the algorithm, is going to be detonated. And simultaneously, Kat has to pretend that she is her previous self on this vacation with Sator so she can stall them so they can stop this nuclear weapon, the algorithm, from detonating in Stalsk 12. Luckily, they end up stopping the detonation of the algorithm, but unfortunately, it looks like Neil is the one who dies during this entire battle because he goes back in time using the turnstile to save both the protagonist and Aaron Taylor Johnson from being killed by this Russian guy who was trying to detonate the algorithm. And Kat kills Sator, so everyone can now live happily ever after. That's basically the gist of Tenet. That's my understanding of the movie. Obviously, I did not go nearly in depth as other people probably have in the past with Tenet, but after watching with subtitles, I feel like I've been able to grasp the main idea of this movie, whereas the first 2 times I had a ton of trouble understanding many of the film's really integral scenes. But I still have 2 major questions about Tenet. Maybe you guys can answer them for me. My first question is, if you used a turnstile to go back in time, say maybe a year ago, is there any way to quickly get back to present day? Or if you go back in time, are you just stuck living in that time period and during the same time period as the clone of yourself who was living a year ago? That's something I really don't understand. I understand that the turnstiles work to move back in time, but is there any way to progress moving quicker, Ford? And my other question is, if you guys have been able to keep up with me during this entire video, in the beginning of the movie, technically that's when Kat does kill Sator, but the beginning of the movie is also the film's ending, and Sator is supposed to be dead after he's killed by Kat. But then after we first meet Kat in this movie, we then are introduced to Sator, and this is where the protagonist and Sator have a bunch of back and forth scenes. But I thought that Sator was killed. I don't really understand who this version of Sator is that the protagonist meets, if he was already killed. And also, I don't understand how Kat is living the same life if another version of her who killed Sator just days ago is also living in the same time period as her. It just doesn't make any sense. Are there two Kats? And how does the second Kat who went back in time to the Vietnam vacation, how does she spend time with her son if all that other stuff happened with the turnstiles? Because that makes you think, are there two Kats living at once? Are there two protagonists, two Neils? How many versions are there of everyone? That's something I really don't understand. But as a whole, I really enjoyed watching this movie with subtitles. I think it's absolutely worth buying the film on 4K. It looks phenomenal. Definitely do it, especially if you have a 4K TV and a 4K player like myself. But of course, guys, I want to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. Have you seen the film Tenet with subtitles? If so, do you think it's better with subtitles or worse with subtitles? I want to hear all your thoughts down below in the comment section. And as always, guys, if you are new to my channel, click the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.